fabled heat, where magic meets desire. Subscribe to ignite the fantasy.
The cold wasn't unpleasant, not anymore. Death didn't end my life, it merely paused it, like a held breath, a suspension, and now re-emergence. I pushed myself up from the muddy bottom of the Bloodrock Ridge Reservoir, the frigid water clinging to my skin like a second unwelcome hide. It wasn't the shock of cold that stole my breath, but the sheer wrongness of being here. Again. The air, crisp and biting, felt alien against my flesh, a stark contrast to the suffocating stillness I'd known. Each droplet clinging to my eyelashes, to the curve of my neck, sparkled like 1,000 tiny diamonds in the faint, filtered light that pierced the canopy above. I could smell the damp earth, rich and loamy, mingled with the sweet, almost cloying scent of the surrounding trees, a fragrance that felt both ancient and intoxicating. The scent of damp moss and the faint hint of decay wafted up from the water, a reminder of the life that teemed beneath the surface. As I broke through the water's surface, the sound of birdsong and the gentle lapping of the water against the shore created a soothing melody that seemed to wash away the remnants of my former life. I felt the water's chill seep into my bones, but it was a sensation that was both familiar and comforting, like slipping into a well-worn cloak. And then I saw them, two men, standing at the water's edge as if they'd been waiting, expecting me. Their eyes, both sets of them, locked onto mine, and a strange, unsettling calm settled over me. It wasn't fear, not exactly, more like recognition, a primal understanding that I was a piece finally slotted into a long-awaited design, each one a master of my fate, and I inexplicably didn't fight the notion. The silver-haired man, he was breathtaking, cruel beauty etched into every line of his face. His hair, the color of a winter moon, fell to his shoulders, framing eyes that were the shade of storm clouds. His gaze wasn't predatory, not in the obvious sense. It was a dark promise, a slow burn that sent shivers tracing paths down my spine, raising gooseflesh on my arms, a promise of power, of control, and something else, something dangerous. He radiated an icy stillness, a contained energy that felt both alluring and terrifying. I could sense the weight of his gaze like a physical touch, and it sent a shiver down my spine. Beside him stood the other, bronze-skinned, sculpted like a warrior god. His hair was dark, almost black, threaded with strands of gold that caught the light. He didn't possess the silver-haired man's chilling restraint. No, this one burned. His gaze scorched me where I stood, water still streaming down my body, his lips curling in a smile that promised both pleasure and pain. The air between us crackled, my skin flushing under his attention, my breath catching as he took a single, deliberate step toward the water's edge. I felt the heat of his gaze like a flame, and it seemed to ignite a fire within me, a flame that flickered with anticipation and fear. "Little Phoenix," the bronze god rumbled, his voice like heated velvet, "we've been waiting." His companion's cold fingers suddenly brushed my jaw from behind when he moved, and I realized the water around me had gone perfectly still. Trapped between fire and ice, I understood with terrifying clarity, this was no resurrection, this was a claiming. The silver-haired man's touch sent a shiver down my spine, and I felt a spark of fear ignite within me. But it was a fear that was quickly replaced by a sense of curiosity, of wonder. Who were these men, and what did they want from me? The bronze-skinned man took another step closer, his eyes burning with an inner fire. "You're ours now," he said, his voice low and husky. "You've been ours for a long time." I felt a surge of protest rise up within me, but it was quickly silenced by the silver-haired man's touch. His fingers trailed down my jaw, sending shivers down my spine. "You don't remember, do you?" he asked, his voice low and gentle. "You don't remember who you are or what you were?" I shook my head, feeling a sense of confusion wash over me. "No," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "I don't remember." The bronze-skinned man smiled, his eyes glinting with amusement. "We'll remind you," he said, his voice low and husky. "We'll remind you of everything." And with that, he reached out and pulled me into his arms, his lips crashing down on mine in a kiss that was both fierce and possessive. I felt myself melt into his touch, my body responding to his heat, my lips parting to allow him to deepen the kiss. The silver-haired man's touch was still on my skin, a cold counterpoint to the bronze-skinned man's heat. I felt myself trapped between them, caught in a web of desire and possession, and I knew in that moment that I was theirs, completely and utterly theirs. The world around me melted away, leaving only the three of us, suspended in a sea of sensation. Bronze-skinned man's kiss was like a wildfire, burning away all my doubts and fears. The silver-haired man's touch was like a cool breeze, soothing my skin and calming my mind. And I was the spark that ignited the flame, the key that unlocked the door to a new world of sensation and experience. As the kiss deepened, I felt myself becoming one with them, my body merging with theirs in a dance of desire and possession. I was no longer alone, no longer adrift in a world that was unfamiliar and frightening. I was home, and I was exactly where I was meant to be. The bronze-skinned man's lips left mine, and I felt a sense of loss, of bereavement, but it was quickly replaced by the silver-haired man's touch, his lips brushing against mine in a kiss that was both gentle and possessive. "You're ours," he whispered, his breath cold against my skin. "You'll always be ours." And I knew in that moment that it was true. I was theirs, body and soul. The world around me was still and quiet, the only sound the beating of our hearts, the only sensation the touch of their skin against mine. I was home, and I was exactly where I was meant to be. The darkness closed in around me, a soft, velvety blackness that was both comforting and terrifying. I felt myself being pulled down into the depths of their desire, down into the heart of their passion. And I knew in that moment that I would never be the same again. The bronze-skinned man's arms were around me, holding me close, his heart beating against mine. The silver-haired man's touch was still on my skin, a cold, gentle caress that sent shivers down my spine, and I was trapped between them, caught in a web of desire and possession. I was theirs, and they were mine, and in that moment I knew that nothing would ever be the same again.